I now give the floor to the Representative of Sri Lanka.
Mr. President, permit me the honor to extend Sri Lanka's good wishes to the United Arab Emirates on being chair of the Security Council for the month of March, and extend my appreciation for convening this debate, which aims to bring focus to the role that women would play in advancing the peace and security. When the United Nations Security Council, Mr. President, passed Resolution 1325 in 2000, it sent a clear message to the global community that international peace and security would not be genuinely achieved if women and girls were left out of the peace agenda. The WPS agenda confirmed the role of women participation in bringing to an end the cycle of armed conflict. Today's topic is very apt that it considers how women's economic empowerment interplays between participation and prevention, pillars of the WPS agenda. Mr. President, although significant strides have been made in executing the WPS agenda in its 22 years, there exists a missing link, a tangible, concrete connection between the public and private enterprises, especially those working in conflict and post-conflict environments, to converge with the aims of the WPS agenda on women's economic inclusion. What we are seeing are siloed business worlds. One world where businesses are increasingly adopting an employment policy that is viewed through a gender lens, thereby committing to CSR initiatives of gender equality. And on the other world where UN and WPS supported corporate initiatives like Business for Peace and the UN Global Compact aim to drive businesses in conflict zones. You will appreciate that the Gender Gap report published by the World Economic Forum makes the claim that female-founded businesses deliver higher revenue, more than twice as much per dollar invested than their male-led businesses. Secondly, they make the claim that bridging the gender gap would add upwards of US $4 trillion to the global GDP. Conflict-affected economies are the most affected due to the lack of foreign investment, mass migration, skill loss, all which underscores the need for GDP growth. These numbers, Mr. President, support the case for women's participation in businesses, and it is these numbers and data advocating for women's inclusion in businesses, especially in conflict zones, that need to be highlighted. Although important strides have been made since the adoption of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, women's direct participation and representation in formal peace processes continues to be one area that lags behind in the implementation of the Women's Peace and Security Agenda. Between 1992 and 2019, women served as only 6% of the mediators, 6% of signatories, and 13% of negotiators globally. The COVID-19 outbreak has shed even greater light to the full extent of gender inequality. In this context, empowering women leaders to participate in peace building becomes increasingly crucial. Women who participate in peace processes tend to represent broader and more diverse constituencies, ensuring a range of views and interests are represented and peace processes are fully democratized. I'm compelled to ask the question, which I have posed before. Isn't it surprising that although women are active in community peace building, they're almost completely absent from political negotiating tables? The exclusions from peace tables are notable. Firstly, the reasons, because women are affected by conflict and thus by consequences of peace agreements. And secondly, related to the first point, women's inclusion in all stages of peace processes is crucial for inclusive social justice. And finally, the presence of women makes a difference to the sorts of issues generally brought to the formal peace processes. My second point again is that women's absence from negotiating tables minimizes the possibility of inclusive just politics. Their relative absence from negotiating tables is significant, I say, because when they are present or participating in less formal negotiations, they tend to induce different issues and frequently adopt different approaches to conflict resolution. I cannot but wind up by recalling, Mr. President, what the authors of the article Women Waging War, published in Foreign Policy magazine, May to June of 2001, which very pithily said, quote, allowing men who plan wars to plan peace, they say, is an irrational bad habit, close quotes. They suggest that whilst men come to the negotiating table directly from the war room or the battlefield, women generally come from family care and civilian activism. Now, Mr. President, I ask finally, isn't that something to think about? I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Sri Lanka for their statement.